Hi YouTube, today I have Michele here and we're going to be interviewing Michele and talking about her using drugs and how she got addicted, and it's again her solely experience, so there's no need for judgment, but feel free to leave comments and questions at the bottom and then we'll go from there. So let's get started. Hi Michele.
Hi Bree, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for asking me to share my experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love to have you, and I like that you are able to share awareness with us today.
Okay.
So can you tell us how you got started with using and things like that?
I started using drugs when I was 12 years old. I started with smoking pot. Some of the parents around my neighborhood were smoking pot. It was back in the 70s when the older generation of my parents' generation was smoking pot, and it was like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So we found some,
Right.
and we just got started. And from the first time I got stoned, I absolutely loved being high. I loved being out of my body. I loved not feeling feelings. And it slowly progressed from there. The pot turned into psychedelics, turned into cocaine, turned into pretty much any drug I could get my hand on. And starting from about junior high school, my whole life began to revolve around drugs. Not so much alcohol. Drugs were much easier to get. So I was a daily user starting in junior high school.
So you said that.
And the addiction came fast. I come from an alcoholic family. My mom was an alcoholic. My grandma was an alcoholic. So I really feel that I was prone to become a drug addict or alcoholic because that's what I was taught.
Okay.
I was taught by my mom that that's how we manage anxiety, is through drugs and alcohol. So that I learned from a very early age that was kind of, what we did. And my mom was active in addiction and alcoholism as well throughout my childhood.
Okay. So you said that you liked the feeling of being high, and can you just explain how that feeling was for you?
It was like a feeling of being outside of myself. I don't think I ever really felt comfortable inside myself. I had a lot of fears, a lot of low self-esteem. I don't really know where that came from. I'm in therapy now to try to find out where the basis of that all came from. But when I would smoke pot or when I would do drugs, all the fears of whether you liked me or didn't like me, the fears that I wouldn't have any friends, all melted away. And it was just a feeling like I could fit in,
Was there any drug that you like to use more than others?
Cocaine became my favorite. Yeah.
Okay.
By high school, I was a full-blown cocaine addict, using a lot. Actually, my senior picture, I'm totally coked out of my mind. So,
And at this age, was your mom still using?
yes.
So she wasn't aware, or
No,
didn't?
she was aware. We were using together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any siblings?
I have one brother, yes, and he was obviously using too.
Okay.
My house was the party house growing up. My mom was supplying the parties, the house, the drugs, and it was really pretty crazy. But it was normal to me. Like, that was the normal. So I didn't really, all of my friends were in that lifestyle, so it seemed to me like that was the way life was supposed to be. So It was pretty normal.
When did you realize this is not the life, or this is not the way to go?
Well, I probably in my early 20s, when I started getting extremely paranoid from cocaine and I started not having fun, was when I realized that I might have a problem.
Okay.
So, and I continued to use even though I wasn't really having a lot of fun.
And how was you using these drugs?
How was I? What do you mean by that?
Were you smoking?
Snorting snorting first, and then started smoking. I've never used IV.
Okay.
And then I try anything you had. I would try. It didn't matter.
So when you snort and smoke, what's the difference between that?
The smoking is a much more intense high than snorting.
Okay.
And it really debilitates your life. I mean, that's all you think about. As soon as you take that first hit, you think of nothing else but continuing to smoke. And when you run out, it's not a pretty sight. You will do anything to get more, yeah.
So how was the symptoms with smoking cocaine, since you primarily use that? Did you have any symptoms? Did you have any, what kind of symptoms besides getting high, or besides the high feeling?
What do you mean? What kind of symptoms?
Did you have any, like, I know that using drugs, okay, like, say, for instance, I drink. And so sometimes when I drink, or if I get drunk, you know, the next day you have to go to the bathroom a lot, or
Right.
you
Oh, well, you would stay up for days. I mean, that was, you would stay up, and then if you ran out, you would do anything to get more, including crawling on the carpet looking for fallen rocks. So, and then once you would fall asleep, like, I mean, I had the longest time I've stayed up for like 10 days straight.
Wow.
So, obviously, you're not functioning very well when you're not getting any sleep. So, it just completely takes over your life.
And did you eat any?
No, you don't eat, you don't sleep.
Did you lose weight?
Yes. I was probably 80 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm 105 now. So,
and that's because you're sober.
yeah,
So
today is my 3-day sobriety birthday.
Give
So,
a
it's
round
kind
applause.
of fitting that Bree decided to come over and interview me today. I just took 3 years of sobriety. It's the longest sobriety I've ever had in my entire life since I was 12. I've had I've had a lot of futile attempts at sobriety before, but just never was able to stay with it. So, you know, I mean, and my drug use, I would say cocaine's my problem. Give up cocaine, switch to pills, switch to this. It was just a constant like combination and trying to figure out what worked and what didn't work, so I could keep staying high but not affecting my life in a negative way, and nothing worked.
Okay, speaking about sobriety, I want you to explain to us the process of it. I know you just mentioned how you try to, and there will be times where you try to get sober, but then you'll go back to it. So with these 3 years being your longest sobriety, can you explain the process to us?
Well, I started going to AA meetings. My mom got sober in 1990. So she this year will have she'll take 26 years on September 15th. So she took me to my first AA meeting in the early 90s, and I did not want anything that they had. I didn't want to do the steps. I didn't want to do the higher power thing. I didn't believe in any kind of religion, or I thought it was a religious cult. But I did it for her, like I tried, and I had young kids, so, but I never really fully conceded to my innermost self that I was a drug addict and an alcoholic. So I never really became willing. I never really became totally humble and saying I was never willing to go to any lengths to stay sober. And again, in the early 2000s, I got, I think, about a year and a half sobriety, and then ended up relapsing again because I wasn't putting my full, attention into AA, which I think will save your ass if you're an addict or an alcoholic. I really think that's the only successful program to staying sober. Being that you have a network of sober people, you go ahead and you get into your own personal stuff through the steps. Okay. You become to believe in a power greater than yourself, so you are not alone. So finally in 2013, my ex-husband left me. My kids moved out. I lost everything. My life was never been so low. And I finally just said, you know what, I'm done. I was just sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I left my house and I moved back home with my mom, and my friend who had 5 years sober at the time started taking me to meetings, and I still really didn't want to do it. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And then, I was seeing a therapist, and she says, Michelle, you're fighting for your life. And that just clicked. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to die. And I'm going to die if I don't stop.
Wow.
So I just became super active in the program, started going to a lot of meetings, I got a sponsor, I started working the steps, and just one day at a time, I found a power greater than myself, which for me is the ocean. So I work in Malibu now as almost a drug and alcohol counselor. I'm at the beach all the time, so that gives me a lot of hope and, being close to that. And just, I became just willing, and I became willing to go to any length, and that's what it takes. You have to be willing to go to any length and do things you don't really want to do.
Right.
When people give you direction, like read this, do this, write about this, and you're like, no, I would just do it anyway. So I kind of just was done because I knew I was going to die.
Right. So now that you explained that, I want you to tell them your greatest success and what you do now and all the accomplishments you have. By the way, Michelle and I are in the same class. Michelle is getting her master's degree in psychology with emphasis in MFT, and that's marriage and family therapy. We go to school together. We're in the same class. So that is a really, really big step. Like, I did not want to go to school at all, and for someone who have been through what she's been through and came to school and still seen accomplishment and still seen something she really wanted to do, and to give back to her community because she loves doing that, is just a big step for her, and it was a big step for me, and I have not been through what she's been through. So all of that is for her, because for her to even like push through, and she's always so positive in class. I'm always like, I'm ready to go, and she's like, we'll be all right, just take another break, we get through it. And she's always so positive. But I'm gonna let her finish and tell us her experience about all her accomplishments, because she accomplished a lot with sobriety and she came so far with it. So Michele, what is your greatest accomplishment?
I can tell you that I always wanted to be a psychologist. I always wanted to be a therapist. I started college in 1982. And of course, I never finished, because you can't really go to college and be doing cocaine all night and still go to school the next day and do well. So I ended up dropping out, went back again in the early 90s, tried again, and again, went back to drugs and alcohol. And so then I dropped out of that. I had a brief stint of sobriety in the mid-2000s where I did go back and get my bachelor's degree in psychology. And I still, again, wanted to be a therapist and signed up for a master's program at UNLV. I was living in Vegas at the time. And my husband lost his job, so I had to drop from school, and I was still dabbling. I wasn't really doing so much cocaine anymore, but I had switched over to pills, doing a lot of opiates and a lot of benzos. And then when I came back and got sober, I'm like, you know what? I want to work in treatment. I want to, become a drug and alcohol counselor. So I started going to Pierce College to get my HEALYH certificate to become a certified drug and alcohol counselor, where I met my mentor, which is Judy Davis, and she works at the school that Bree and I go to right now. And she said to me, she goes, why are you just getting your HEALYH? You have a bachelor's degree. Why don't you go get an MFT? And I had thought about getting an MFT, but I was kind of scared. Like, I don't think I can do this. So I just said, I just started looking into it, and then everything just fell into place. It was like something was guiding me down this path. It was like, this is what you're meant to do. And, I'm working in treatment now. I'm helping other addicts and alcoholics to get sobriety. I absolutely love what I do. I see this quote on Facebook all the time. If you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. I love going to work. I love working with these people. This is my calling. I finally found what I was meant to do. So I started in January going to Phillips Graduate University to get my MFT. I since have gotten 2 semesters of straight A's. I'm doing fantastic. I have my internship, so I'm working with clients, and it's just a great ride, and I'm just so blessed. But I still know that I'm just one drink or one drug away from a relapse. So I stay very close to my program, and I'm very close to putting recovery ahead of everything, which means that if my sponsor calls me and says, I need you to go to a meeting tonight, I go. I put it ahead of my school, of money, of relationships, because without sobriety, I won't have any of that other stuff. So just my shift in focus has changed. And as a result of that, my life is falling into place beautifully. Like, it's just amazing, this ride that I'm on. It's pretty exciting. Effect, huh? Yeah. It's like everything the path's just opening up for me. That's how I feel. Like,
that's so good. And just to wrap things up, I want you to say anything positive and give any advice to someone who's struggling with the same issues you. Is there anything that you would say to them, anything that you would give them?
Absolutely. If you're struggling with drugs or alcohol, and you want to get sober, reach out, go to treatment if you can, go to an AA meeting, and just tell somebody that you're hurting and that you need help. You can do this. Trust me. If I can stay sober for 3 years, anybody in this world can do this. Anybody that wants to make a change in their life, it's really scary and it's really uncomfortable in the beginning, but if you are done and your life is completely out of control and unmanageable, and if you're listening to this, you guys know who you are, because I knew who I was when my life was completely out of control. And you can do this. Anybody can do this. All you have to do is become willing, honest, and open-minded, and reach out for help. Nobody can do this alone, but there is so much help out there for us that struggle with this disease. Anybody can do this. So I would say go for it. Call the AA central office. Go to a meeting. Everybody knows somebody that's an addict or in recovery. It's everywhere in everyone's life now. So reach out to somebody that you know that can help you, and go for it and just do it, because anybody can do this.
Okay, thank you, Michele.
Thanks, Bree.
I'm gonna link below the website for the SAMHSA. It's called
SAMHSA. Yeah.
It's the national hotline to mental health. I'm also going to link down the telephone number, and that can help you with any drug and alcohol, any centers around you. And it's not just for drug and alcohol, it's for mental disorders as well. So if you know somebody with any mental disorder that needs some help and you probably can't afford it, you don't have the money, you don't have insurance, that hotline can get you to any help around you in your area, and it's national. I'll try to link down below the international number if I can find it, but you too can get some help, like Michele said. Do not be afraid, because even people without addictions need help and they're afraid to ask. So with that being said, I'm gonna leave you guys with a quote. The quote is, you write your own story. You write it with a pencil, and always remember that pencil has an eraser. So you make that choice to erase your mistakes and start over. Okay? And I'm going to end it with that. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. This is my first video, my first interview that is going to be up this week. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you continue to watch my interviews, because all I want to do is spread awareness. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, Bree.
You're welcome.